What would happen if you mixed the music, humor, and vibe of SpongeBob SquarePants with a GTA gameplay loop and those bizarre musical singamajig toys from Mattel? You might get something like Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip, but is Tiny Terry short on content, or does size truly not matter? Let's find out in our full review. Hey folks, don't get into a dick measuring contest with the Gaming Echo Chamber. Head over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames and gain Discord access, early ad-free shows, shoutouts at the end of every video we produce, and even free games depending on which tier you select. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. Also be sure to lock into twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central to join Gamer Ghoulfriend for awesome live streams of many of the games featured right here on the channel. I know she can't wait to meet y'all. Lastly, we want to hear from you. What would you do if there were no laws for a single day? We'll be sure to pin our favorite comment below. Play as the titular Terry in Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip. In this adventure, Terry is motivated by his dream to go to space and a complete lack of interest in summer school. First things first on his agenda, Terry needs a car. He applies for a job and gets paired with a taxi driving position, though he fully admits he's not gonna do any actual work. The game's offbeat humor could be compared to SpongeBob, yes, but also has a distinct feel of its own. Tiny Terry is a game that makes no secret about trying to be weird. It's weird and it's proud, I guess you could say. As I alluded to in the intro, this open world is full of colorful, quirky characters that walk with a bounce in their step and speak in unusual tones. The town of Sprinklewater, where the game takes place, is quite charming, and while not massive in scope, makes up for its condensed landmass with various tasks and mostly entertaining writing. As for the gameplay loop of Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip, it could best be described as a GTA Collect-a-Thon without the grittier side of things. Your main goal is to gather enough turbo upgrades by collecting junk that improves your vehicle. Ultimately, you want to upgrade to the point where your taxi can boost into space. Junk is earned by taking on tasks such as catching insects, digging with a shovel, or even just searching around town. The game's other currency, money, is used to complete quests and also purchase items such as adorable hats for Terry or tools such as a butterfly net for catching items. Players are free to explore the city however they wish, either on foot or with their taxi. The taxi can be summoned at any time by hitting parking signs scattered across Sprinklewater, but if I'm being honest, I almost always found it easier to get around on foot. It's not that the driving controls were particularly bad in the game, more that the city's layout is easier to navigate by jumping and dashing. Mission variety is pretty decent here, even featuring the occasional minigames such as soccer or bumper cars. Almost all of the missions are comical in nature and lighthearted. Players won't encounter any major penalties for failing missions and can try them again if they so wish. A built-in map makes navigation relatively easy, with locations well labeled and the ability to drop a navigation marker so that you won't become lost. The game also does a pretty good job of tracking your progress and completion percentage, and that more or less explains the mindless, silly, fun gameplay loop. This means that Tiny Terry is pretty accessible for most ages. It does have a few darker themes, I guess you could call them, with the looting and such, but overall, doesn't take itself very seriously, so nothing to be too concerned about. As far as visuals are concerned, the game has a cartoon-like nature with vivid colors, really adorable and bouncy animations, and a city that feels lived in. Traffic flows around the city, trees sway, and vehicles will even follow rules such as stopping for red lights, which I thought was a nice little amusing touch. There doesn't seem to be much of a penalty for death, if you can even call it death. I'd say the closest I came to offing Terry was driving a stolen vehicle off of a cliff, only for a town resident to charge me $5 for having to retrieve the submerged vehicle once again. You can essentially do whatever you want in Sprinkle Water without the fear of repercussions. Steal a car, bash someone with a wrench, destroy public property, or glide over the town hall. If you can dream it, you can do it, and the game looks pretty great throughout. On the performance side of things, it ran great on PC with high frame rates easily obtained, and just a few random hitches here or there, though the patching process had already begun during my review time, and the last patch seemed to make this game quite stable. I did encounter a couple bugs throughout gameplay, one of which temporarily halted my progress, but overall, the game's biggest problem was an unruly camera. Awkward camera angles are not uncommon in this experience, an issue that comes up just often enough to be a nuisance. On Steam Deck, Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip performed quite well. I tested it at low, medium, and high settings, and all of them were playable. If you're looking to get close to 60 FPS, low settings will be the way to go, though even high settings will get you into the 40s while looking sharp on the Steam Deck screen. So you do have options here, which is always nice, but however you run it on Steam Deck, it plays pretty well. And as for that soundtrack, it's really, really wonderful. Zany, just like the rest of Tiny Terry. Different parts of town appear to have a different theme song, which sets them apart from one another. The driving theme is particularly infectious. I'm still humming it to myself as I write this review. Character voices are silly gibberish, similar to Banjo-Kazooie or Animal Crossing, and all of the sound effects were very well implemented. From the pitter-patter of Terry's feet to the gentle swaying of waves as you swim through the ocean, they're an excellent complement to the fun and wacky soundtrack. Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip is a delightful bite-sized collect-a-thon that scratched an itch I didn't know I had, like a surprise mosquito bite. I'm pretty far removed from the GTA series at this point, so for me it was kind of refreshing to get back into that gameplay loop, reminding me of the fun I used to have in the GTA San Andreas days, which, for my money, is still the best in the series. Tiny Terry takes that formula and turns it sideways with its unusual comedic writing, characters, and quests. If you enjoy the gameplay of GTA games but are open to a different setting and sense of humor, I think you'll find a great deal to like here. While the unruly camera and bugs were a drag, there's enough fun to be had with this title that makes it an easy recommendation, and winner of a silver Genie Lamp of Approval. Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip doesn't quite reach outer space, but you can't say it doesn't at least try to shoot for the moon.